What happens after death? Life after death. That is the question that I think humanity has been questioning for many years, for almost all of human existence. We're always pondering what happens. We're going to die someday. Actually, it might not be inevitable. With all this future technology of biotechnology, genetic engineering, who knows, maybe we will be able to upload our consciousness into the virtual reality to live forever. Who knows? But let's get back to Earth for a little bit. Back to Earth in a very spiritual or maybe intuitive kind of way. So what happens after we die? Well, I have thoughts on this. I have an idea. Now, I'm not atheist. I would lend myself maybe in more of the spiritual school of thought in this. But I'm also kind of grounded in reality and science-based. So just to give you guys a little bit of context before I delve into this idea. But basically, what I think after we die, if we're thinking about this logically, I would think that reincarnation has some merit to the idea. So, playing off of that, I think that we're going to die. We get buried into the grounds. Our skin cells, biological bodies, our bones, eyeballs, our tissue, our organs, it's going to decompose. It's going to, even if, let's say, we're in a coffin and surrounded by these wooden barriers from the actual earth, eventually, someday, that wooden case surrounding our body is going to decompose as well. And eventually, our bodies, after we die, is going to get fertilized back into the ground. And it's like the cycle of life. Our body's going to bury, decompose. The physical nature, the biological nature of our bodies, I think, is going to get recycled into, let's say, a tree, or it gets washed up and somehow manages to get into the ocean, and then a fish somehow manages to eat me, well, a bit of me, and then a part of me now is living kind of, sort of, inside of that fish. And then that fish is going to, let's say, get eaten by a shark or whatever eats fish, like a bird or something. And then that bird ends up recycling. That once was human tissue, now is part of the fish, and now is a part of the bird. And that's like the cycle of life. So biologically, scientifically speaking, I think there's, in the physical nature of things, there's a circle of life. There's the reincarnation. Now, it gets a little bit of a gray area when we talk about human consciousness. What happens to that after we die? Well, a part of me likes to believe that the reason why I have human consciousness is actually, a part of it has to do with the biological nature of our brains, the chemistry, the neurochemicals that make up our brains is part of the hardware that allows our software, consciousness, to be able to process, to be able to make sense of what I'm perceiving in this world, be able to take in this physical reality and make sense of it, and have the power of thought to make my own choices, to have rational thinking, to make decisions in my life. So when we die, what happens to that consciousness? Well, a part of that hardware kind of goes along with it. When I get buried into the ground, my biology, my brain, is gonna get fertilized into the ground as well. And part of my brain is going to allow that tree to grow. And that tree is going to suck up the nutrients of my brain, as weird as that sounds, to be able to grow, to be able to get reborn. So a part of my brain is going to be in that tree, well, at least the energy of it. And the chemicals, the biology just kind of gets transferred around. If we're talking about like ADP or like phytochemicals, I don't even know the science behind it 100%, but thinking in terms of energy, there's always a balance of energy in the biological natural world. And then I think there is a deconstruction of part of my brain, because a part of my brain kind of gets into the tree, a part of it goes off into the runoff of the land. And so there's this disconnect of biology that then my conscious thinking, my rational thought, kind of gets like reoriented, and a part of that intelligence is like separated out in the natural world. And then by the act of God, by the act of spirits, the higher spiritual force, there then reassembles all of that biology into the makeup of conception, which is my mother just got knocked up, and that union of biology creates this miracle that we call consciousness itself, which is the birth of life. And I think that's the godly thing, that's the spirituality of human life itself, is the ability of this crazy thing called fertilization of pregnancy, is able to align all of these biological factors. And that alignment, that's very specific and scientifically relevant alignment of genes, chromosomes, tissue makeup, all of that coming together to then formulate the perfect formula that allows us to think as rational human beings. That's amazing to me. Conception it's the conception of consciousness, really. And that can only happen when certain biological factors of the formula are in alignment perfectly to allow life to give birth, to allow pregnancy to give birth to the ability to create a rational thinking, conscious human being. And that's the circle of life. And that takes a lot, honestly, that is like, honestly, if you think about it, it's kind of amazing that all of these different biological factors, like my brain maybe was once part of the tree, and then that tree gets eaten by a chipmunk, and then that chipmunk gets eaten by, let's say, a bird, and then somehow that bird is like, that energy of the bird manages to somehow get into the grass after it dies, and then a cow eats that grass, and now somehow my mother ends up eating that cow from a steak they had at dinner, like, and all of that energy gets recycled and reprocessed to then my mother somehow biologically becoming the makeup of me when I am birthed as a fucking baby. Like, holy crap, that's spirituality right there. The ability of like this manifestation of alignment of different biological factors to consciousness. Whoa, that's crazy to me. And the idea of consciousness recycling, I think that's kind of true too. Because in a sense, let's say you die. Me personally, a part of me is afraid of death, and a part of me is not at the same time, because a part of me believes that when I die, my consciousness is going to get reborn. Me and my physical body right now, my thinking, my rational thought, I think is a recycling effect of what once was in a different body, of a different conscious human being. But I don't remember it because the biological makeup of my brain is different than the biological makeup of the brain before me that was creating a different set of consciousness. And I can only remember the things of this hardware. I'm not able to remember the software processing of the hardware of the person prior to me that once was a part of this biological brain, if we're talking about this recycling of biology. So when I die, and my body gets buried into the ground, there will be a set of time. There's going to be a time period where I'm not going to be consciously aware until the one day that parts of this brain bit, parts of my biological brain is going to get recycled into a new human being. And I believe that. And when that happens, a new piece of hardware is going to be created, which is another person's human brain, which is then going to allow the process of their software to be created, which is then another person's consciousness. But because I, in this physical body right now, don't have the hardware of that biological human being, that biological human being is not going to remember the life and consciousness of this current human being. And it's just going to be a reorientation of a new set of hardware. It's like a computer, for instance. Like that hardware of the computer gets recycled. Your iPhone, you throw it away into the trash. They take the metals from that and they create a new iPhone. But that new iPhone's not going to remember. It's not going to have the same memory bank as the iPhone that you threw out. But it's going to have some pieces of that metal of your previous iPhone in it, because that's a whole process of recycling. And then that software of that new iPhone is going to be able to upload new memory banks, a new app, a new iOS that is different from the previous iPhone. But it's the circle of life. It's nature. And again, maybe this whole idea could lend itself to atheism, but a part of me is so spiritual in the sense that, like, damn, how the heck is nature able to align itself biologically, neurologically, chemically, to be able to allow me as a human being to sense this physical world, make sense of it, and then have rational thought and decision making? It's honestly crazy. And I think it's human nature to have these higher expectations for the world and not be grateful for like what we already have. And like, we're always searching, and like me personally, I'm always trying to discover new things out there, find new sense of fulfillment, experiences, because that's like the fucking part of life. That's amazing too. But at the same time, it like kind of jades us to being grateful about the simple things and finding this sense of spirituality in the everyday. And what I mean by that is, as us human beings, we want to look out into the sky and be like, there's got to be a God, a higher being, a spiritual being that is controlling all of this. And for me personally, maybe that spiritual being, that like force, is human nature itself. And then at the same time, looking at myself and being like, whoa, just the fact that I'm able to be a conscious human being and woke up this morning, that's freaking amazing. Like, how the heck did science, nature, and who knows, a God above of all these different forces and factors is able to allow that to happen? Just so I can just sit on this phone and take a video of myself. Like, what the heck? That's crazy. Okay, I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, to sum it all up, like, my spirituality lies in Mother Nature, in the natural order of this world, to create the spiritual, godly thing that we call consciousness itself. So signing off, that was my rant for the day. Peace and love to you all. Take care. Later. Bye.